All right, let's talk about those muscle stimulators. You know, the ones that promise you a full workout while you're just sitting on the couch. Today, we're going to dig into the real story behind this billion-dollar industry.
I mean, you've seen the ads, right? People with these pads strapped to them, their muscles twitching away, all while they're like reading a book. The promise is incredible, a workout without the work. But is any of it real? Or is it just clever marketing?
Well, we're going to cut through all that marketing noise and go straight to what the science actually says. We're looking at a huge 2021 review and some other recent analyses to figure out what this tech can and, what it can't do. And the very first thing you need to understand is that not all of these zaps are created equal.
Yeah, so the term electrical stimulation is a massive umbrella. It's not one specific thing. It covers a whole bunch of different devices, and they all have totally different goals. Think of it like the word vehicle. I mean, are we talking about a kid's scooter or a giant freight train? They're both vehicles, but you wouldn't use them for the same thing.
And this chart here breaks it down really nicely. You've got things like TENS units, which are mostly for temporary pain relief, and honestly, the evidence for them is pretty weak. Then you've got other devices like FES and NMES, which show moderate evidence for very specific medical uses, like helping someone recover from a stroke. So the key takeaway here is that most of these gadgets aren't even designed for fitness or building muscle in healthy people.
So to actually answer our question about getting stronger or building bigger muscles, we have to zoom in. For the rest of this explainer, we're going to put just one of these technologies under the microscope, the one you're most likely to see advertised for fitness, which is neuromuscular electrical stimulation, or NMSEs for short.
We're basically going to treat this like a deep dive case study. And our main guide is going to be that huge 2021 review I mentioned. It looked at 37 different studies with over 900 people, so it gives us a really good look at what NMS can actually do.
So what even is NMS? Well, the technical definition is right there on the screen, but here's a simpler way to think about it. You are essentially hot wiring your own muscles. Instead of your brain sending the signal to contract, this little device sends an electrical pulse that bypasses your brain and tells the muscle to fire directly. Pretty wild, right?
And that brings us to the million-dollar question, especially for those of us who are healthy and active. Can creating this artificial muscle contraction actually lead to real-world results? Let's break it down into the two big goals, getting stronger and getting bigger muscles.
Okay, so let's start by looking at the data for healthy young adults. And let's begin with a really simple question. Does this stuff make you stronger?
And this chart tells a fascinating story. If you compare using NMS to doing absolutely nothing, well, there's a clear winner. On average, people saw about a 14.5% gain in strength. So yes, it actually works. But, and this is a big but, when you compare it to just good old-fashioned exercise, hitting the gym still wins with almost a 22% average strength gain. And the researchers themselves were super clear about this. They concluded that the evidence is strong that NMES does in fact make you stronger compared to a control group that does nothing. So for strength, the verdict is in. It's a real effect.
Okay, but strength is only half the story, isn't it? A lot of people want to know, does zapping your muscles actually make them grow? Well, when the scientists looked for the answer to that question, things got weird.
Seriously, look at this. When they analyzed the studies that actually measured muscle size, what scientists call hypertrophy, the results were a perfect 50-50 split. Half of the studies they looked at found that NMES did increase muscle size. The other half found it had no significant effect at all. The evidence is completely divided. The jury is out. It's a total coin toss.
But hold on. Before we move on, there is a massive asterisk here, a huge piece of fine print we have to talk about. This chart from the review basically grades the quality of the studies they looked at, and the researchers themselves said the overall quality of the evidence was, and I quote, poor to moderate. So while these findings are interesting, they're built on a scientific foundation that's a little shaky.
And this lack of really solid evidence becomes an even bigger deal when we shift our focus to another really important group, older adults. We're talking about fighting that age-related muscle loss, a condition called sarcopenia. If NMES could help here, it could be an absolute game changer for keeping people mobile and independent as they age.
So you'd think there would be a ton of research on this, right? Well, when the scientists looked for high-quality studies on this topic, specifically in healthy older adults, they found a grand total of 5. Just 5 studies.
And get this, the total number of people across all 5 of those studies combined, just 123. To put that into perspective, that is a tiny, tiny sample size to try and draw conclusions for millions and millions of people. So what's the bottom line for older adults? Well, the early signs are promising. The little data we have suggests NMES might help with both strength and muscle mass, but the evidence is just way too thin to say anything for sure. The main conclusion from the researchers was simple. We desperately need more research.
Okay, so after digging through all of that research, what is the final verdict? Do these muscle stimulator things actually work?
Well, the most honest answer is it totally depends on what you mean by work. If you're a young adult and you want to get stronger, yes, NMS can help, but not as much as actually going to the gym. If you want to build bigger muscles, the science is literally split down the middle. And for healthy aging, it looks promising, but it's a field that's just getting started. The big takeaway from all of this is that context is everything. It all comes down to the type of device and your specific goal.
Which leaves us with this final thought. As this technology gets better and better, is it going to become some revolutionary tool that completely changes how we do fitness and rehab? Or is it always going to be more of a supplement, a helpful sidekick to the tried and true methods we already know work? Right now, the science seems to point to the latter. But hey, the final chapter on this is definitely still being written.